Equity cannot be achieved by the grown-ups who make decisions for us. Equity is to be achieved by us, the children. So let's take a step forward.
I'm Archana and I'm really happy that the Lyceum debating team is in the finals of the debater series. I personally think it's a real big honor for the entire Lyceum schools the Lyceum debating team is in the finals against Ananda. It's a real honor and also a privilege.
Hi, I'm Samadhi and I'm a member of the Debating Society of Lyceum International School. So as a member of the Debating Society, I feel so proud and it's indeed a great honor to be in the finals against Ananda, one of the most competitive schools in Sri Lanka.
As today's proposition, we believe that the 13th Amendment should be abolished. The 13th Amendment to the Sri Lankan Constitution was brought into existence to bring devolution of power to Sri Lanka itself. This was due to the demands made by the ethnic minorities. Thus, the purpose of the 13th Amendment is to distribute powers to the 9 provinces, powers of policy making, legislation and even administration, thereby giving more autonomy to the 9 provinces and the provincial councils, giving them less dependence from the central government itself. Our first argument as to why the 13th Amendment should be abolished is that the 13th Amendment provides too much power to the central government itself. Firstly, the governor is appointed by the president and acts in his office at the pleasure of the president. Therefore, we also believe that considering the legislative power handed down by the amendment, the legislative power in the case of a Supreme Court determination in the 13th Amendment says that the ultimate legislative power rests within the hands of the parliament itself. Furthermore, considering the Financial Committee, which is a centralized body, which only advises the president, who then allocates government funds according to his choice or discretion. Our second argument is that according to the inbuilt flaws of the 13th Amendment, proper implementation is simply impossible. Our first example to that is that the Northern Provincial Council still has not even been constituted. And secondly is that the very controversial Divinagam Bill has been passed, stating that the 13th Amendment only acts as a lip service to the devolution of power in Sri Lanka. Therefore, due to the structure of the 13th Amendment, we believe that proper devolution of power cannot occur, and therefore it should be abolished, and a better system of proper power devolution should be brought into place, thus for a better future and for a better future for the Sri Lanka.
Hi, I'm Devini. It feels so awesome to be at the finals of the debater against Ananda College, Colombo, which is one of the most competitive schools in the island. As Team Lyceum, every one of us at Lyceum is going to be there at the Stein Studios on the 24th and cheer our speakers up and then help them to give a good fight to Ananda, and it's going to be a game worth watching. So I would like to wish Sanamini, Selvamini, Hasita and Kavin all the best of luck.
Karumena Genetlia Lejevu Dajobu Desu. Do you agree or not? No ma'am, you can't agree because ma'am, before the 13th Amendment was established, the Tamil was not an official language, and at present, yes, there are faults with the Tamil being an official language. Therefore, under Article 154Q, A and D, provisions should be taken, additional measures should be taken to improve the 13th Amendment, where we should take one step forward by improving it and not one step backward by abolishing it. Yes ma'am.
Ma'am, if you keep on improving the 13th Amendment, to what extent is it going to remain as the 13th Amendment? Won't it technically become another new amendment as a whole?
No ma'am, because it will be called an improved version of the 13th Amendment, because you have been harping on about an alternative system of devolution. From 1926 to 2008, many alternative systems of devolutions were proposed and they were rejected. The 13th Amendment is the only devolutional power which maintains the unitary state of the government, and therefore it should be improved and not repealed. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. About the Divinagam Bill, a referendum was needed by the Supreme Court itself, which is not respected. How will you say that this Winsbury principle will be respected like that?
First, it's Winsbury rules, sir, where it judges the reasonableness of the governor, and number 2, Article 154N4A ensures that the governor's power is curtailed. The problem lies with implementation. Therefore, like you all said, get rid of the structural flaws in order to make it more implementable so that it will be improved and rather than repealed. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, now you talk about how exactly you believe that the 13th Amendment is so very good, and yet you propose that there should be more improvements done to it. And also regarding the issue of the governor's duties, the fact that the governor itself is appointed by the president and at the whim and fancy of the president will be able to dissolve any provincial council. What do you have to say about this, ma'am?
Number one, the 13th Amendment was introduced in order to stop federation, and the governor's power is subsisting as a safeguard in order to prevent federation. And also, ma'am, like you said, we can't stay with the present 13th Amendment because there are structural flaws according to you all. So if there are structural flaws, if there are irritation, then get rid of the irritation according to the amendment itself instead of abolishing it.
Ma'am, don't you believe that you cannot just improve the 13th Amendment, because the 13th Amendment is wholly about centralization? But as you say, you are for devolution. So don't you agree we need to come up with a whole new amendment?
Ma'am, the Constitution, 1978 Constitution itself was amended more than 18 times. Therefore, if the 13th Amendment is slightly altered in order to make it more implementable, it will not turn into a new form of amendment, ma'am.
Ma'am, the Supreme Court itself says that the ultimate legislative power is within the hands of the Parliament. And you say that it still devolutes power. What are you going to say about that, ma'am?
Ma'am, sorry, sir. Devolution should be conducted under the unitary state of the country, and the fact that legislation, the ultimate legislation is with the centre, is in order to ensure that devolution happens within the unitary framework of the country. This will prevent federation, sir, because we face the Elam law in order to prevent federation, and the 13th Amendment just does that. Yes,
Ma'am, don't you believe that when the centre is in charge of devolution, there will be no meaningful devolution? There should be an impartial body judging this.
Hi guys, I'm Ceremony, and I'm one of the debaters taking part in this debate. We're really excited to be in the finals. It's been an amazing experience for all of us, and we've had the support of the entire school, and it's just really amazing. And even though Sandamini and Kavin aren't here today, on behalf of them, we believe that it's been a really great experience for all of us. Not just the debate itself, but having to make new friends from other schools, and it's really been a great time because we've met so many people of different personalities, and we've made a lot of friends throughout this entire, I don't know, 8 months maybe. You don't even feel the time passing. And talking about behind the scenes, when we went for the toss for the final, we were like really shocked when we saw the topic because it was something totally unexpected and something we weren't even informed about. There was like a conference about this topic in like the recent past, and we were like, oh my gosh, we had like totally no idea. We were just so shocked. And Miss Asna and I still remember when we had to like walk through and knowing that the camera was on us, we were like feeling so awkward, and we were like trying to avoid looking at the camera. And yeah, well, we had a lot of photo shoots. Those were fun, especially posing for the billboards, because we actually got to know our proposition better, the Anandians, because they seemed like a really fun bunch when we actually got to know them. And yeah, it's been like, it was unexpected, the topic, because it wasn't something we expected at all. The most ironic thing was that it was the 21st of December, and I still remember Madam Producer saying that, you know, it's like the world is going to end at 4:38, and Miss Asna and I were like, oh my gosh, we're going to spend our last hours here at Stein Studios. And well, when it came to the toss, the reason why I chose opposition at that moment, actually my mind was just like swimming with thoughts. I'm like just so confused. And the reason why we thought the opposition would be best was because it seemed to be a more practical side of the topic. I cannot tell the topic to you right now, sorry, but that's the best part about the grand finale. It's going to be a surprise, and we think it's going to be a great debate, knowing the fact that the Anandians are very competitive, and we acknowledge the fact that they're really good debaters. And only recently we actually got to know them better, and we found out that they're really nice people as well. So we believe that we're going to give it our best shot, and we think we have a really good chance of winning this. Let's go Team Lyceum. As the second speaker of the proposition, I'm here to tell you that the 13th Amendment should be abolished, and as our alternative, we believe that once it is abolished, we should move towards giving more devolution. Yes, ma'am.
When you say abolishing the 13th Amendment, are you suggesting to say that Tamil has to be removed off as an official language?
Yes, no, ma'am, certainly not. What we believe is that, in a moment, ma'am, what we believe is that Tamil should be kept as an official language, which is very much important, but we believe that we should move into a different amendment rather than actually having the 13th Amendment, which is very much structurally flawed. Yes, ma'am.
So, ma'am, are you proposing to abolish devolution which is the global trend of administration?
No, ma'am. We are proposing that we should actually get rid of these centralization, because this is currently what is happening in the current context. What we see is that there is so much of power given to the executive, that there is a lot of power given to the government. It is very much centralized, and not enough power is being actually devolved. As our first speaker mentioned, it is merely a lip service. The 13th Amendment is merely a lip service. For example, take, as you mentioned, the Tamil language being an official language. What we see here is that even though it is merely written on paper, all the bills and laws that are passed in the parliament itself are written in Sinhala, and thus we believe that this is one of the main reasons why the 13th Amendment should be abolished. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, according to the Wensbury rule, the governor's laws and regulations are challenged in the Supreme Court. So how can you say that the governors have extreme power?
Ma'am, first and foremost, the governor itself is appointed by the president. There itself, it is very clear that the governor itself has a lot of power. We see that the governor is merely a puppet of the president in this case, and therefore we believe that this is one of the major flaws. And thank you very much for bringing out this point, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, according to the amendment itself, there are certain restrictions for the governor. For example, the Wensbury rule, which we have proposed, and number 2, Article 154 Q, A and D gives way where we can make certain additional measures in order to make this amendment more effective. So when the amendment itself gives answers to your structural flaws, why abolish it?
Ma'am, because it is merely written on paper. None of it is actually implemented in the current context. It is very clear, ma'am, that even though this is written on paper, it is not being implemented. And also, it is not only the problem with the implementation. We believe that it is not actually written properly in such a way it can be implemented. Yes, ma'am.
What is your alternative solution for devolution of power other than the 13th Amendment?
Ma'am, this was exactly what I was going to talk about in my substantives, and thus I will continue. It is basically giving more devolution, since we have realized that the main problem is that the central government has too much power and can take away the powers of the provinces as it pleases, and this we see is a major flaw. And also what we believe is that by giving more devolution, which facilitates more autonomy, we can actually establish 2 orders of government with very specific powers that cannot be taken away easily. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, you have been beating around the bush by not giving us a proper alternate, concrete alternate for devolution of power. State an alternate that can replace the 13th Amendment, ma'am.
Ma'am, this is exactly what I am suggesting. Rather than actually having the 13th Amendment, we believe that once it is abolished, as our alternative, we will be moving towards giving more devolution to these provinces, as in more autonomy and more independence for these provincial councils to actually take decisions on their own, on a localized level, rather than the central government actually making decisions for them at a national level.